business is swearing in our...
Whoop, this would be green. No, you don't have to touch it.
Okay. The first order of business will be swearing in our new board members and the superintendent. Repeat after me. I, Henry Zamula,
I, Henry Shamula,
do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of trustee of the Iroquois Board of Education
of trustee of the Board of Education
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Have you
Thank you.
signed it?
Oops, Lucia.
I, Lucia Donato,
I, Lucia Donato,
do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of ex officio student trustee
as ex officio student trustee
of the Iroquois Board of Education
of the Iroquois Board of Education
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Jan, I'm going to sign right here. Thank you.
Not my turn?
Now it's your
All right. Here, I'll just take that. I, Douglas R. Schofield, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and I will faithfully discharge the duties of the superintendent of the Iroquois Central School District according to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicely done.
Thank you. Now we will have the election of our officers. Are there any nominations for President of the Board of Education?
I would like to be president again.
Are there any other nominations? Discussion? Okay. All in favor of Jim Michalik as president?
Don't vote for yourself, abstain.
Okay, don't go for myself, that's pretty bad, I'm going against myself.
That's why you abstain.
That's why you don't raise your hand.
Unanimous?
6.
6.
Yeah, you know, for 6. Nays?
Nays?
6. Nays and abstain?
Abstain?
1.
Abstain 1.
Yeah, I don't think yeah, last year we
He
did.
doesn't, I don't think
Okay.
he has to. Okay. All right. Repeat after me. I, Jim Michalik,
I, Jim Michalik,
do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of President
the duties of the Office of President
of the Iroquois Board of Education
of the Iroquois Board of Education
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Take a blank check. Oh, no. We'll fill in what you're really doing later.
That's I kind of a pretty good idea.
All right. You would take over now to get a vice president.
Are there nominations for Vice President of the Board of Education?
Bob's nominating. Yeah, no, the mic's not on. She couldn't hear you. Got to make it green. There you go.
I second.
Keith
Keith.
He nominated Keith. Heather
It's me,
seconded.
Nora.
The new guy, Keith.
The only thing I'm wondering about, and I know that you were very present in like agenda meetings and stuff, but how's the work? Because I know that you had to miss quite a few meetings because of work.
Yeah, I missed two,
Yeah, okay.
and my work schedule has adjusted and fluctuated some.
Okay.
Which actually has allowed me to support other areas outside of board meetings.
Okay.
Other areas outside of board meetings, and so Jim and I last year, and I think it was welcomed where, you know, Jim had tapped me and said, hey, can you participate here, can you speak here and support, and so outside of the regular board meeting attendance, there were opportunities, probably 3 or 4, that helped step in, and so from a workload perspective on the professional side outside of here, but then also the responsibilities here, I felt it was managed and represented well. The other part of that too is maybe I was not here. Jim and I worked very collaboratively in the planning sessions and make sure that, you know, it's structured appropriately and then the voices are being heard. So it wasn't necessarily me just stepping out and not participating. It was actually interacting with Jim and Doug throughout the year. So it was a
Okay.
little bit more than just, hey, being attendance.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
no, agreed. And that's maybe some things that we don't always see like on the
Right.
surface. I just wanted to bring it up.
No,
So,
I
thank you.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
And to add to that, if there's ever, for board discussion, Keith would then give me information on the input that he would want to
Right.
provide,
Okay.
to the board at the
Okay.
time.
Great, thank you.
Do we have any other nominations? Okay, all in favor of Keith Vergain?
I can vote for myself.
Yes, yes. Okay, so that is 7 ayes, no nays for Keith as vice president. Okay, before we move on to start voting the resolutions, we first have to fill out the board members to the different positions we have with Erie County School Board and within the school. So we go to 3.25, and that would be the School Board Delegate Assembly. Last year, that was Mr. Eichinger. What? It's up to you. Okay, then it's the alternate to that one, which was last year, it was Keith.
I can be the alternate.
Okay. Now we're to the Legislative Committee. Last year that was me, and Heather was the alternate. I would probably like to switch roles on that with this one, if that's okay.
Could I be the, Jim, just because I have not been on that committee before, do you mind if I jump on being the alternate?
Oh,
on
no, that's
that
fine,
one?
Heather, you can
Okay.
definitely do it.
Two Heathers. Heather J. primary, or no, you're primary, I'm alternate, right?
And then we have the representative to the Erie County School Board Finance Committee. Okay, and I can do the alternate to that one if everyone's okay with that. Okay. Next, we're going to go to the Board of Education representative to the Iroquois School Center District Audit Committee. I can do that this year. I've done it before. Jane did it last year. And now we have the Board of Education representative to the Iroquois Central, to the Schools Wellness Committee. It was Heather last year. Becker? Okay. Now we have the representative to the District Wall of Fame Committee. That was Bob? Would you like to- Okay. Now we have the representative to the Athletic Wall of Fame. That was Bob again.
I'll do that one if you don't want to do two. Oh, okay.
Okay. And now we have the representative to ITAC. That was Todd last year. Okay. And then we have the representative for the safety plan. That was Heather last year.
Yeah, I'll do that again.
Okay. So now that we've completed filling out the resolution, which is Resolution 3 to appoint the following individuals, we're going to go to a motion to accept those, and I will make the first motion. Looking for the second. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so 7-0, all in favor, none opposed. Now we're going to go to 4, official bank depositories. It's 4.01. And do we have to read them or no? They don't have to read them, right?
No, you don't.
No, because they're on there. Okay, so to accept Resolution 4, I'll make the motion for it. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, first by Jim, second by Heather. All in favor? Shows all in favor?
We can always say that, too.
Okay. And then none opposed. Okay, next we'll move to Resolution 5, the official school newspaper, which, just so everyone knows, will be the Buffalo News and/or the East Aurora Advertiser and/or the East Aurora Bee. I will make the motion to accept that. Is there a second? Okay, first by Jim, second by Heather. Any discussion? A what, Bob?
They always are primary?
Yeah, every year we gotta do it.
Yeah, the reorg is a lot of just going through and reaffirming things that were in place last year because state law says we have to do it, and we do and/or here, depending on what's happening, to be the most cost-effective we can.
Okay, we had a second on that, right, Heather? All in favor? So it shows 7 in favor, none opposed. The next is a resolution of authorization, and this is for deposits and things like that, right, Doug, that we're doing, and bonds?
Yeah, this is for like what the treasurer can do, having petty cash on hand, purchasing agents. I think in here it authorizes, nope, that's in a different one. You guys to attend conferences and get reimbursed, those are the things that are in here. Very general, low-level items.
I make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Keith. Any discussion? All in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed. The next is the building use fees. And this is just basically what we are going to rent the building and a facility to for certain groups, correct?
Yeah, so if someone in an outside organization wanted to use it, this is what we would charge them. The exemption is for the students. Clubs like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts that have our students in it, they would not have to pay. I think it went up 3%, John, is that correct? Yep.
And this is for the students in the affiliated groups, the one we're about to vote on.
Well, it's for all of them. So I'll say Moog Volleyball comes in and rents the Marilla primary.
That'll be 8. This is just for, right?
For the following resolutions, corresponding to school organizations. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, the waive is the first one.
Yeah.
The cost is the second one.
Yeah, so this one is for the student groups or connected groups to waive the fees on them. I'll make the motion for that. Second is by Todd. Any discussion? All in favor? Shows all 7 yeses, no nos. The next one, 8, is for the charge list for groups that are not student or affiliated directly with the district. So I will make the motion on that one. Is there second by Todd? Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. 7 in favor, none opposed. Sorry. Okay, now we'll go to number 9, which is voting devices and annual budget vote and board elections. It's a resolution to use the devices for the elections and the budget vote. I will make the motion for that. Is there a second? Second by Bob. Any discussion? All in favor? It shows all in favor, none opposed. Motion passes. Okay, number 10 is board policies and regulations. And basically here, we're just reaffirming all the policies and regulations that we normally operate under. I will make the motion on that. Second? Second by Henry. Any discussion?
The thing I want to point out is we're reaffirming them, but very quickly in the next meeting that follows this one, the special meeting, we will have the the non-internet connected device policy and the one coming up right after this. So one could be changing very quickly.
Okay. All in favor? Okay. 7 in favor, none opposed. Number 11 is the code of conduct. This is just the code of conduct for the students, right, Doug? Yeah. And it's just, we're renewing it. Just to note that Heather Becker is abstaining on this one. Okay. So I will make the motion. Is there a second?
I just have a question about that. So I saw the changes to the, just about the dress code diagram, which I think is helpful considering why that was removed.
Yeah. Why it was changed?
Removed from the,
It was changed because the principals find it very hard to enforce
okay,
due to the body shapes of multiple individuals. So the principals wanted to try something different
okay,
to be more equitable for body shape.
okay.
Okay. So we got a little bit out of order there. Okay, I made the motion. Is there a second? Second by Todd. We just kind of had discussion. Is there, any, vote for that, please? I apologize. All in favor? Okay, so it shows that there are no noes, 6 in favor and 1 abstain, which is Heather Becker. Next is number 12, the Athletic Code of Conduct. I will make the motion for that. Is there a second?
I just.
Well, hold on, we got a second, and then we have discussion.
Okay.
Second is Bob. Discussion.
Right, so I noticed the coaches section was
Correct.
expanded on,
Yes.
which is good. But are we going to still pursue having a coach's handbook, like we discussed?
They would be given this whole thing,
Okay.
so this would be part of it, and then the athletic director does meet with all the coaches to go over everything
Okay,
before all the seasons.
so every year, the coaches have to,
Every year, they would get the same thing over and over again.
okay, okay.
As a volunteer, you were expected. Well, we like to tell you things multiple times.
Probably a good idea. Okay. All in favor? Okay, none opposed. So that shows 7 favors, no noes. Motion carries. Number 13 is the professional development plan that we're going to adopt and renew that. I will make the motion for that. Second? Second by Heather Becker. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. The motion carries, 7 in favor, none opposed. The next is 14, committee appointments. And this is the committee appointments to special education, preschool, subcommittees, surrogate parents, health and safety, transportation, audit, and wellness. And these are all recommended by the superintendent. I will make the motion to pass this. Second? Second by Todd. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, so we have 7 yeses and no nos. Next, in membership, number 15, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education affirm its membership in the following cooperatives, which is Erie 2, and the School and Municipal Energy Cooperative.
And the Erie 2 is a workers' compensation because we're self-funded.
I will make the motion for that. Is there a second? Second by Todd. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. The motion carries, 7 in favor, no nos. The next is 16, the Omni Group. The superintendent recommends we approve the Omni Group, and that's for a third-party provider. Is that for 403B and 457 for plans, which are the retirement plans. I will make the motion for that. Is there a second? Second by Heather Becker. Any discussion? All in favor? The motion carries, 7 in favor, none opposed. The next is 17, Orleans Niagara BOCES, and this is where we are, Doug, joining.
Yeah, what this is every year for the Niagara Orleans BOCES, Erie 2 BOCES, and Erie 1 BOCES, we just have to affirm we're going to be members of them, and therefore allows us to send students to it and use their services.
Because technically Erie 2, which we vote on next, is our primary one, right?
That's our primary one, yes.
So I will make the motion for that. Second? Second by Todd. Any discussion? All in favor? All in favor? 7, no nos. The motion carries. The next is for Erie 2 BOCES, which is our primary. I will make the motion for that. Second? Second by Henry. Any discussion? All in favor? Shows 7 in favor, none opposed. The motion carries. The next now is we did Niagara Orleans, we did Erie 2, this is Erie 1 BOCES. Same thing. I will make the motion for that. Second? Second by Todd. Any discussion? All in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed, the motion carries. The next is bid contracts. The superintendent recommends that we participate in the federal and state bid, and this is basically when we do the uniforms, if the company has a federal bid, then we can just go ahead and, a federal contract, we can just go ahead and accept their prices. I'll make the motion to accept that. Second, by Heather. Discussion? All in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed, motion carries. I'll look to my left, Keith, I'm sorry. Okay, number 21, government donated food. The superintendent recommends that the board approve the following resolution, and this one is stating what exactly, Doug?
By law, again, we have to approve, we're going to accept government-donated foods to our food service department. They send it to us, it's what they use, that's where chicken comes at a better price, cheese comes at a better price, and things like that. I find it interesting that they have this program that's set up for schools, and you have to approve it every single year. I would think you would approve it once, and it would just be good forever, because it's the government, but every year we do this.
Okay, I will make the motion. Is there a second? Second by Henry. Any discussion? All in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed, motion carries. The next is pay rates for the positions listed below, which are tutor, lifeguard, athletic trainer, outside of school, day detention, and student assistant. I will make the motion. Is there a second? By Todd. Discussion? All in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed, the motion carries. The next is similar. It's the pay rates for substitutes on there, and bus drivers and grounds workers. I will make the motion for that. Second? Second by Keith. Discussion? All in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed. Okay. The next is for substitutes, and are these by the day rates, right, Doug?
Correct, these are day rates,
Yes, not by the hour.
not by the hour.
Okay. It's 24. I will make the motion to accept that. Do I have a second? Second by Bob. Any discussion? All in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed, motion carries. The next is mileage rates for the bus, a van, or a car. I will make a motion. Is there a second? Second by Heather Becker. Any discussion? All in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed. The motion passes. The next is the repair reserve fund. Okay, and this is just something that we have to do for the repair fund every single year to affirm that we're.
Yeah, what it
Accepting.
does, it sets us up in order, by law, the board has to adopt this resolution, so therefore, come budget time, John wants to start a new one. It's there and ready for him to do it. We just started one, it's not fully funded at this point, so the odds are we will not be having another one this May, but every year we do this just in case something happens and we decide to make one. Or the voters are asked to make one, because they have to vote on it.
Okay, I will make the motion. Is there a second? Second by Bob. Any discussion? All in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed, the motion carries. The next is our providers. For a lot of this is like a software for the school. I will make the motion. Second? Second by Todd. Discussion?
This one we put on here, now, this one's not required to have on here annually. We can just have a sole source and it's good forever. But why do we put it on here? Just to be clear and transparent of who we're using each year so no one forgets and the public knows the companies.
Okay. All in favor? Okay, 7 in favor, none opposed, the motion carries. The next is the standard workday, and it's just basically stating that for the district clerk and district treasurer, 8 hours is the standard workday. I'll make the motion. Is there a second? Second by Todd. Sorry, Heather. Discussion?
I have no idea. This is a civil service requirement, and why they picked these two positions and none of the other ones, I have no idea.
There you go.
There's your honesty.
All in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed, the motion carries. Next is 29, qualified lead evaluators. And this one is just highways.
This is for central office to evaluate building administrators. And the next one is for building administrators to evaluate teachers.
Okay. So this is.
2901 and then
2901.
2902.
Yeah, we're going to do 2901 right now. I'll make the motion. Can I have a second? Second by Heather. Discussion? All in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed, motion carries. The next one is 2902, qualified lead evaluators. This is for, to evaluate the teachers. I will make the motion. Is there a second? Second by Heather. Discussion? All in favor? Okay, 7 in favor, none opposed, the motion carries. Now we will move right to the special meeting.
Thank you, everyone, for working through that to get the district up and functioning again. I know it's the most thrilling half hour you've ever spent in your life going through it, but I appreciate it greatly.
Okay, now for the special board meeting, I will call it to order at 8:32. And what's going to happen is that Doug is going to give us a hearing on the safety plan.
And by hearing, that just really means information. Some of it changes over the years, not all of it. So in going through it quickly, safety plan, we do have Higher Erie 1, and they're the drivers behind this to make sure everything is compliant with it. And it's based on this legislation, which the legislation hasn't really changed at all. And it's really for the district-wide plan, which means there's a little more detail than a building plan. But again, it doesn't go in there. It just talks about our procedures, our emergencies, and what we're going to do and how we're going to respond. Plans are confidential. So therefore, they're not subject to disclosure. That's important because we don't want someone who's planning this to understand all the intricacies. So students are taught so much in classes, teachers are taught so much, administrators are so much. Now, as you get up to SROs and administrators, they know more as you build up through it. There's more and more information that is known by the individuals. And then our SROs communicate with local law enforcement so they know how they're going to interact together, and even the fire department. There were some additions in 21-22 and 22-23 that have been enacted, and we're doing that. 24, that's where we had to do some amendments. Let's see, from drills, and that's where this year we had to put out notifications to parents within a certain time frame, and the principals all did that in their Friday messages. We did have one thing where we did in one building, there was one teacher that wasn't sure if it was a drill or a real thing, so we put another procedure in place to take care of that in that one building. Everyone else was good. Here, just a recap of the drills, simulations, and, the bus drivers were aware. It includes information, behavioral assessment teams, and so on. So we're all ready to take care of all that. It's all been implemented and doing well. Here's more of it from last year. And that's where the trauma, they were worried about trauma for students having it. This is where you can speak up now really and say as a student, yeah, we had lots of trauma, or oh, it's so much better, or just be quiet. Just trying to help our new board member along with where they can throw things in. Because this is where none of the other board members will have the same information as you, so you're very privy to that. In 2025, there's amendments, so this is what we have to implement for next year. And I got to be honest with you, they came out, we reviewed it, and they had this plan of what they want to call things. We actually implemented that this past year. We were 1 year ahead of it. Thank you to the school resource officers. They saw what was coming, went. There's a few little tweaks because of the final wording, but if you look over there by the door, you can actually see it in case of an emergency, and every single room has that. They're all there, they're Velcroed. They can rip it down, take it, and go anywhere they want with it. And that's really it for our safety plan of what we have to go over. So questions?
Yeah, I just have one. So, nothing changes for this plan in regards to the cell phone policy because we would contact the parents and
We would contact the parents
Same way we do
anyways,
today.
yeah. And that's an interesting thing because, I was going to talk about this more in recognition of last public comments. And then one thing people say is, well, I want my child to be able to contact me in case of an emergency. Okay, but what's the emergency? And parents should be contacted, but if they're being bullied right away, they should go to a trusted adult in the building. Much faster than calling a parent driving in for half an hour, parent calling, trying to get an administrator. There should be an immediate reaction. That's why we're working on that. There are other more horrific things that could happen in a school district in case of a shooter coming in. In that case, no one should be calling anyone. Everyone should be following our first procedure of hiding. And parents are like, well, I want to get there right away and help out. You coming here to help out creates a bottleneck and draws law enforcement to create a stronger perimeter so people aren't coming in from the outside. That's not your job. You will not be allowed in. And it just holds up traffic. All the cell phone traffic also can take up airwaves, for the cell phone towers are going in. People will be notified. Parents all should be notified in what's going on. But again, what's neat, and I as an older generation have trouble with, is texting. I get a text, I want to respond right away. I think the younger generation is much more smarter, I guess that's probably the best word, is smarter, more adapted to seeing if they see a text, knowing, oh, this is one that can wait. My wife sends me something that says, hey, can you stop at the grocery store? Oh, yeah, I can stop at the grocery store. What do you need? I'm not coming home for 3 hours. It can wait 2 hours. And so therefore, sending in messages, don't forget to go to the dentist's office. At the end of the day, when students pick up their phones, they can see, go to so-and-so's house. Oh yeah, I can see that at the end of the day on their phones. And if it's an immediate thing, it's an emergency, especially if it's something unfortunate that's happening at a household, really, you don't want a student breaking down or crying in the middle of the hallway or a classroom seeing it. Really, by having an adult, having the social emotional support for the child when they receive this information is very important at this age. And I think there's a lot of high school students that can handle getting information, but again, as working through it, there's good and bad with what's happening. We really don't have a choice. I'd prefer to be a local choice for we determine. But right now we have to file through the state. So for the information, getting off a little bit since I started on it, for the gentleman, I did talk to him about the policy. I did get out information. I think it was very clear of where I stood as a superintendent for the district on it and what we had to follow. And we're going to continue what we've been doing right along. And I think that's another misconception people have is, well, my middle school student had their internet device, their phone, in school. Well, not really, because they weren't supposed to have it out. They were supposed to have it put away, put in the lockers, and I think a lot of our students will do just fine because they had to go through the middle school with it. We don't want to see the phone. Have it away, have it put away, and you'll be good. Put it in your locker. Just be smart, follow the rules, and everything will work out.
And just 2 points on this. One, and I think it's, people who weren't here when originally this was presented with the lockdowns and the blue light system by Officer DePlato, the one thing he called out to us is that everyone's got to understand, to Doug's point, if that situation, God forbid, ever going on, the last thing he wants to deal with is all of a sudden someone coming on campus in a car that he doesn't know. Because now he has to assume that person, this could be a parent, but that person's a threat. It's what they have to assume. So that's what he said, you've got to understand that. It's not that he doesn't care, or that, in this case, Chad Berry does not want parent involvement. It's that when in that situation we're locked down, if you come here and you're not supposed to be here, they have to assume you're a threat and they have to deal with you accordingly. And the other thing with the cell phone policy is one thing, but I still believe in the practical application of how we carry it out, that's going to change and move on throughout the year as things happen. Doug and the administration and the building principals are going to have to make decisions on certain things in that policy that's not going to happen until we start living it. Do you know what I mean? We're just not. So everyone has to keep in mind on that as well.
I think the key, though, also to echo what Jim was saying, is it's not about restricting access, right? That's That's a key point, right? And I think it optically feels like you're restricting access to the students. That's not the case at all. It will look different. It will look not as normal as you felt it was last year or the year before. But those are the pieces that we want to work through as far as what is the access? What does it look like? How do we behave in this new environment? And personally, I feel encouraged that it will also drive, when I'm talking about non-internet connected devices, it should drive more connection with the students themselves, right? And it kind of does fall into the safety, health risk sort of behavior, right? It kind of is interconnected, unfortunately. But I think optically that what Doug and we're doing is trying to walk through the requirements by the state, making sure that there's still access, there's still connection, but there's not this level of fear and uncertainty and doubt, right?
And I asked the question specifically because I think as a parent, right, and not having cell phones, I think parents are very nervous about if something did happen.
Right.
What the communication would look like. And obviously, communication is not going to be your top thing it's heavy on your head, communicating to the parents, but some sort of communication, either through like what you use for Monday messages or whatever, just to give parents a level of comfort that their kids are okay, because they're really not going to be able to connect with them because of the cell phone
Right,
policy.
and that's where K through 8th grade, there really is not any change.
Yeah.
Which means the 9th graders, having been 8th graders, should experience the same communication that they had last year.
Yeah.
So you're talking 10, 11, 12th graders. 10th graders are 1 year out, right, from 8th grade, so hopefully they remember some of it. And I don't know, it all depends on the family too, like how much do they communicate, how much do they talk during the day and use that as a group chat. I don't know, as a student, do you have anything to add? Not putting you on the spot, you can say no, that's okay, but you need a mic because you don't have one. If you are going to talk.
I think it is different for every kid, because some people probably, like, communication to their parent isn't like the first thing. It's like, oh, Snapchat's gone, or like stuff like that. Like, yeah, like a lot of.
Every single kid has an AirPod.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where, I guess here's the question, I'm assuming, so I don't want to assume. With the AirPods, what are they doing with them?
Listening to music.
So if they're listening to music, they can still have non-internet devices to listen to music. I guess MP3 players, during the day, they were not allowed Walkmans. The yellow Walkmans can come back in, and some of them are waterproof, so you can swim with it.
Well, she can use all the cassette tapes she has.
So you can pass the word, go online this summer, if you have birthdays, get your MP3 players or whatever, non-internet music listening device.
And if nothing else, that as some of us can attest to, for parents, it'll be good for you when your kids go to college and they're away. They will only communicate with you, as Bob will tell you, when they want to communicate with you, as Keith will say. So it'll kind of help that.
Yeah, my kids communicate every time I call them.
Okay, we're gonna move on.
Were there any other questions?
sorry.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Welcome to the Iroquois Central School Board of Education meeting. There are two recognition of guest periods, one for agenda-related items and one for other topics. Please refrain from personally related comments and address those to the appropriate administrator. To speak, fill out the proper form and submit it to the district clerk. Public comment is limited to 15 minutes total, with each speaker allowed up to 3 minutes. This meeting is held in public rather than a public meeting. And while we won't engage in dialogue this morning, we are listening. The meeting is live streamed and the recording will be available online. Moving into board discussion, I just want to start off first by, once again, thanking Nora and recognizing she's still here to support. And I also want to welcome Dawn to our family here. I also want to welcome Henry, our new board member, and Lucia, our student board member. And generally to, especially Lucia and Henry, as you kind of get through it, it's, during discussion, it's time when if you want to throw things out, just mention them. If there's specific things you want discussed, just get a hold of me. for the next meeting, and we can get it on the agenda. And I definitely think for Lucia, the biggest thing is it'll be kind of neat to have a perspective of a student as we talk about these things. So, don't be shy, if you have questions,
Or disagreements or
disagreements,
answers.
say something. Especially as you learn the process, because I think that is the biggest, reason for, having the position. Because we could all be looking at this one way as adults, looking at it from our point of view. We really can't look at it from your point of view because we're not in your shoes. You know what I mean? Just like, Doug didn't know why you possibly have an earbud in your ear. So,
Yeah, we'll just play my music over the speakers as they walk through the hall.
God forbid.
Good idea?
Then the kid should definitely have
Sure.
earbuds.
She said, sure, I'm doing it.
I would also encourage the board members to use Lucia also as a reference, right? So it's our responsibility to include her in the dialogue. And I want to make sure we're held accountable as we do that, because she does bring a perspective that we don't live, and I think her input will be important. So I just would challenge and encourage the board members to make sure that we're including. I don't think it should be like a bigger deal. It's just a point to make sure that we are, right? Because we can forget.
Okay, the item we have on the agenda for discussion is the Board Ambassador Program. We've talked about it for, a couple of years, and kind of gone back and forth on it and changed a little bit. And the Board Ambassador Program was originally created many years ago with a specific purpose in mind. I think it started with the Iroquois ambassadors, right, Doug?
Correct.
And that's after a budget vote had, been defeated. The way I thought about this, and I've watched in a bunch of different ways, and this is just, my view on it to ask, my fellow board members to consider. As far as being an official ambassador to a building is something that I no longer agree with, because my view is that we are trustees for the entire district and every building, the taxpayers, the students, the teachers, and if there's a particular building that you would want to see or towards, I want to see, Wales Primary, I would let Doug know that I want to see it, and then we'd contact the administrator and we'd go in. I don't think necessarily one person wants to be limited to one building. Or last year, when I worked with Doug and Alexa Langhardt to bring in Scott Beeler to speak to the students, that wasn't really something I was doing as an ambassador to the high school. It was something I was doing for the benefit, of the students and to give them that exposure. So as far as, and I think when you get the idea of ambassador, the problem is you almost become a representative of that building, and that's when I become concerned, because we don't not to go to a particular administrator and say, let us know what's going on in your wish list, so then we can advocate it, really with the superintendent. It's not our role. It's that administrator's job to do that and to, talk to, their appropriate, Doug or John or whoever it has to be for that. And it makes us a representative, and that's not really our role. I think we should feel free to go to any building and talk to them. And I also think that if there's a type of thing that, as truly being an ambassador, if we're interested and we want to do that, there may be, one, or two sporting events that as a board, we would try to attend. Or as a board, we'll try to attend the middle school play or the high school play. If we're looking to be an ambassador of goodwill and be seen, that would be more beneficial than being an advocate for a building. And that's not to say that anyone, Todd, could not want to see Elma and then go see the middle school. He's not just stuck like in whatever building he's assigned to. He can simply do that. And I think that would be more beneficial. That's just, my opinion. Now I will turn it to you guys.
I think that in general, as board members, we should be visible across the district as many times as we can, whether it's your kids' events or whether it's not your kids' events. But I like the ambassador program, and whether we decide to rebrand it or whatever, to ensure that each building has some sort of representation at their events. And that includes their PTO meetings, being aware of what they're doing, but not necessarily getting a wish list from teachers or whomever to get things done. Just this past year, I was Marilla's ambassador, which entailed PTO meetings, being aware of what was going on in the building, participating at events with them to ensure that they know that they're represented, which is much different than like a wish list or being a delegate to report back to Doug with what needs to be done. So I guess I just have a concern if we don't have it, how do we ensure that each building is represented appropriately? Because a lot of things happen here on the main campus, right? But probably less at the primary level where we'll have an opportunity to go to events as a board, because a lot of things happen like, during the day or whatever. So how do we ensure that we have all of our buildings covered to make sure that we're visible, I guess?
Well, with being visible and involved, I agree with you. Like, as far as each building being represented, if we wouldn't want to represent the building, I think it becomes a responsibility of each individual board member to be involved. And I know there may be concern that, board member X may not want to be as involved as board member Y, but that's not something that we ensure. It's not a mandated role of a board member. So I think it's, just like you did that stuff, and that's stuff you wanted to do, which is very beneficial. I just chose the one like with Scott, because that's something that I wanted to do and I wanted to get involved in. Just because I'm looking right now, Henry may want to do something at Wales, and then he's free to do that, and that's stuff under board discussion that we'd bring back if it was something that was on the whole board level. So I agree with your thing. My question is assigning specific people to a specific building. How does everyone feel about that?
I'm sorry, I think what Heather's trying to say is if there isn't some kind of representative just in theory, then it might just go away, period.
So is there a way for us to get almost like a calendar of events like they just did?
So-
Clearly ramped up field day, right? So maybe if we all know when something like that is, we can have a spreadsheet, something where I'm like, all right, I'm going to Elma, I'm going to Monroe, whatever, just so we can all know, hey, we are showing up, we are making appearances because this happened or this is going on.
Yeah.
What happened before ambassadors were there, and kind of what Jim alluded has been a problem with ambassadors for years is, depending on your work schedule, people have different availabilities at time. So we'll pick on Heather. She was able to get out to a lot of events at Marilla, which was great. But then on reflection, one of the other buildings who the person couldn't get there for their work schedule, no one ever showed up. So now you feel the haves and the have-nots. I'm not saying get rid of it because of that reason. That's just a reality. Before there was ambassadors, they actually did that. They would come with the major events that were happening at the buildings and tell the board. It could just be disseminated in an email, like, here's what's coming up in the month. And so therefore, you could pick. Some years they tried it as discussions at the board, like, I'll use the musical. The musical's coming up. Is anyone planning on going? Oh, I'm going Saturday. I'm going Friday. Other people said, oh, I'm going to this sporting event. I got to be honest, we really didn't talk much at all about sporting events. It was always around music, the performing arts of concerts that we're going to, and then things like field days or performances down at the middle schools or at the elementary schools. So those were the type of things that were talked about, not going to everything.
So I appreciate that, Doug, and I think, Henry, your point's well taken. I think there's two perspectives here. One, at least I'm feeling like there's this obligation where you are assigned a building and you have to attend to what Doug was alluding to. The other part too, and I think what Jim is alluding to, is the genuine interest of just being engaged, right? So I agree and echo the fact that you don't want this to fade, right? And I think, Heather, your point is I don't want it to fade, but what I believe is important is make sure there's genuine interest of attendance, right? I'd rather have a board member who can make the events and genuinely interested in it versus a board member that is going because I signed up and I have to check a box. And I think that's optically what we're trying to do. And when we're converting over to a requirement, I think it's not to be less engaged. I think what it allows us is the flexibility. I think it still should be a topic at discussion with board meetings because we should be, as board members, engaged in the community. I myself, I go more to athletic events than the music events because my daughter is more engaged in athletics. And so we participate and show up there. That doesn't mean I can't go or we can't connect at other places. But what I think Jim is referencing is, I will call it the requirement or hard line of you have to be assigned. And I believe the behavior of the board should be, we just genuinely will gravitate to the buildings that need attention or that we want to be part of, and it allows us the flexibility to connect. I think it's also an accountability point where we should be accountable for, going to the transportation garage, going to Marilla, going to the high school, right? And if we're not doing that, we have to, I will say, that should be a discussion that we should bring up at board meetings.
And what I want to say, because I know, this is why I appreciate Heather. What is going on, it's one thing I learned one time with their company, it's called Be Here Now. We, assuming that every single person on the board is here because they want to be here. And because you have a genuine caring and interest for the students and the districts. So if you're not here for that reason, you really shouldn't be here. So assuming that, and I really do, have faith that everyone is here for that reason, then we're gonna want to get out and get involved. And I think the best thing we can do is, to Todd's point, is somehow a centralized where every building has their list of events. So maybe you're like, oh, that Tuesday at 10 o'clock, I think the one time I went to Wales, they were doing a kind of like a nature thing outside, and they were doing a nature walk, and that was something that I got to because I knew it was going on. I think that's the way we represent. And it also opens up the discussion to where, do we want to go to that, basketball game where 3 or 4 of us go, or to that football game, or to that musical, or to that thing. And that's where I think it makes a stronger statement if there's 3 or 4 board members, just like if, Heather, Bob, and I show up at a STEM night and we don't have a student, involved, that we're just there for a half hour. That's the type of statement that I want to make. When you make it a requirement and it becomes check the box, I think that the intent is lost. That's what my point is. So, and I guess I'm done on that topic. It's up to you guys.
So then the resolution to that is just to talk on a monthly basis about the events that are going on and how we're going to represent and be present.
And a unified calendar.
Yeah.
So we know.
If we've got some type of digital alert, because looking around, I don't see too many people, everybody's kids are more sports oriented, so we miss out on the music and the theater type of alert. So if we had it where we can see it.
Well, the Monday message covers bigger events.
The Monday messages, but that's where Dawn and I can get together and come up with an idea.
Yeah.
And I'm just going from the past history. It used to be something where we'd bring up major events here. Hey, this is what's coming up this month at a board meeting. Or it might be just an email to the board of, your agenda's appointed up on board docs. Here are events for the next month.
Yeah.
Something like that, trying to make it simple and easy, and then we can pull them from the, because my Monday messages does not have, and maybe you mean Friday messages, I'm not sure which, because they could be in the Friday message too to the board, because you say Monday, I think of my messages to it, but the building's Monday messages have what's coming up in the next week and so on. So maybe that could be an excerpt even in the Friday message. So I've labeled about 3 or 4 different things here. Don't want to decide today. I'd rather have the private conversation with Dawn and come back. And if you guys say, oh, this is good, we try it. Kind of like the internet policy. We try it, it's working, we keep going forward. It's not working, we modify it.
And I think the big thing is for our August 27th official board meeting, just pulling out the district planning committees, maybe if there's a list of stuff happening that like Keith and I would know, for the agenda meeting, at least stuff that's happening in September.
Right.
So then under board discussion, we can be like, just so you know, Marilla's doing their big whatever, does anyone, want to attend? And I think that's how you get the conversation going. Like for the high school this year, it'll probably be easier because Lucia will be able to let us know a lot of what's going on, but then that covers the high school.
But it would be for the things she's interested in.
Correct. Village will know those things. But what I'm saying, it just gives us that, to have the under-board discussion, it gives us, take 5 minutes to have this point, wrap that up and see what we would like to, and I don't want to do, trust me, the last thing I want is mandatory family fun, but if there is 1 or 2 events where like 3 or 4 of us get to, that's where I think that when people see the board as a board, because I think when you're there, I mean, as an individual, even if you're not a parent, you're there kind of as a parent, just what they see, or you're there standing off the side. I think if there's a few things where, 3 or 4 of us get to, that's kind of where it looks like the board is there. I don't think with one of us there, the board's ever there.
So on the school website, everything is listed. Is there a way that we can merge bigger events on the school website into our Outlook where we get an invite to an event? Click accept, click decline, and then when that...
That's one thing we've tried over the years. It has had mixed successes, but we can keep plugging away at that.
Because then when that day comes, I mean, I can see that Keith's going to be there, Jim's going to be there, Heather's going to be there. Nobody's going to be there. Maybe somebody should show up.
That's a good point, yeah.
Nora and I have talked about that.
That would be...
She's off to the side, but her and I talked about it because I also function, I've got 2 or 3 calendars.
So do
try
I.
to function with, and
Yeah.
it becomes a little bit more confusing. There is
Yeah.
a way to merge that, so we can take that off.
So I definitely think we got a blueprint and a plan that we can proceed with. Do we kind of have a general agreement on that? Any further discussion? Then we'll move to the superintendent report.
I already talked about the last month's public comments, so recognitions, just recognizing all the hard work that the teachers and staff did this year. They always, I'll use Jim's words, they're there for the students. That's why they're here. They're here for the right reasons, and it's great to see. The one last thing I'd like to say is to the graduates, congratulations. We had the ceremony. Everything went well. Unfortunately, it's the last time at that venue, so we're looking for a new venue. People have been telling me different areas. I've been passing them along to high school. It's really a high school event, so if you want to just cut out the middleman, contact the high school directly and tell them the different locations where we could have it. And as the weather was okay for the event, but I think it highlighted very quickly why outside is a bad idea, because it was rainy, then it was hot and steamy, then it was rainy, and it can be that way in Buffalo all in the same hour. So, and I know some schools will have it outside, had to cancel theirs and have it the next morning, which it works. I mean, you can find a way to make it work, but then I think of families, people coming in from out of town, elderly people, they, or even younger people, I guess, could want air conditioning and escape from the elements, where that might not be if you're having a venue outside or in our gymnasium. That's what one school is going to now, is their gymnasium. Ours can be very hot and muggy. Some people have parties the next day. Yeah. And then it could be in types of the party, and if you have dinner reservations or something, it's just...
Or if grandma's coming in from, her aunt is coming in from Columbus, Ohio.
Yep, flying in, flying out the next day. It could be difficult, so, but congratulations to everyone. Okay, sorry, just saw a text. I thought it pertained to you because it's from Erie County School Boards, but it isn't. Okay, so that's right. So congratulations to all the graduates and everyone. That's why I see cell phones are distracting. But I thought it was business. That's all I have, so
Okay,
thank you.
For recognition of guests and agenda items, do we have any guests? No, okay. So on to the consent agenda. The basic purpose of the consent agenda is to act upon routine matters in expeditious manner. Items placed on the consent agenda are determined by the board president and vice president in cooperation with the superintendent, and are those which are considered common to the operation of the district and normally require no special board discussion or debate. Board members have the ability and responsibility of reviewing the consent agenda ahead of time. A board member may request that any item on the consent agenda be removed and inserted in an appropriate place on the regular agenda. The president will present the initial motion, followed by a second. So for the agenda items 10.01 through 22.13, is there any discussion?
I
just want to welcome some people. We got Tim Conchafter, who's joining us at Murillo Primary for second grade, Timothy Howard, who'll be an earth science teacher in the high school, and Melissa DeJoseph. She was part-time and is now going to be full-time labor in the middle school, so welcoming them to Iroquois.
And I had a question just on 2101 about the cell phone policy. So has anything changed between the first and second reading, or anything else different on?
No, I read through it, talked to different individuals about it, because I know there's a concern about the statement about in lockers, was that a conflict? We did not think about having them stored in the locker was a conflict based on what it said, because students can walk with their cell phone through the halls to their lockers before school. They can ride them on the buses. We couldn't find one there. The other concern was shells and mays, and where I saw those, may is the right word. Your student, and we talked about it earlier, may not be allowed to, in an emergency, to reach out to the parent because of what's going on. If there's a individual outside the room that is being aggressive, we may want everyone in the room to be quiet and no noise. So therefore, you may not be able to call at that point, or may not. So if it says shall be allowed to, that means they can at all times. So I think that wording was appropriate. Those were the things that I looked into and reread it, compared it to the law, compared to the wording to the law. And I didn't see anything that could change based on the law or what could result from changing a word here or there.
And just to follow up on this, once again, I want to say the policy is heavily dictated by New York State, and this, myself personally, this board as a group, and this administration as Doug, has been opposed to this action by New York State. We have asked for, to be able to make our own rules in-house, and whenever this has come up, we've always, when it was still our choice, we always said no, that we're going to trust, we're largely talking about the high school, we're going to trust the students in the high school. And we felt that having them know the appropriate when and when not to use a cell phone was part of a life lesson, and that's what we wanted. That being said, this was taken, kind of out of our hands by New York State, and the governor actually making, it's not even SED, she put in their budget as a law. And just to show you two things within her law, by the way, if, a student decides they want to use their cell phone, we can't punish them, which is in the law as well. But the point with this is that I think we all got to understand is that Doug and the administration, especially the high school, when the practice of enforcing it may change throughout the year. He may come back and say, we're not doing this anymore. We are doing this, or we're changing this because we're going to have to see how it works. And once again, not to do this is where I think, Lucia, you can be of a huge, give us your point of view on things.
Especially like how we look to you for everything.
As it starts, as it gets rolling, because I said the policy is the policy, but then the practice and how it's carried out, there is, give and take in that, and some of it we're just gonna have to see. Just like we talked about with the student board member coming on, the role, we're gonna, it's gonna change, it's gonna be created, in this case, by us and Lucia, because we've never done it before.
Yeah.
So in the cell phone and how it's carried out, it's gonna be the exact same way.
And that's important. People, I think, in general in education, make big mistakes with policies. They make them very confining and rule-oriented. Policies are more of a vision. This is what we want to see. We had to put the part of the law in there. We want to give to the buildings the ability to have practices and procedures in there to implement and get to that vision. And if we start off saying, well, we trust every student to do this and it's not working, then we have to make a change. It's supposed to be just distraction-free. The phone shouldn't be out, should not be internet-based devices should not be out and being used during the time. And I know some people have the watches on. Are those internet-based? And some are, some aren't. They all look the same. And some are not internet-based, which is interesting. They're Bluetooth-based because they go off your phone. Other ones are strictly internet-based. You could be off wherever, not have a phone anywhere near you, and they would work. So the Bluetooth one, if your phone is off, would be acceptable. And this is where it's going to get so much into the weeds. That's the role of the building administrator. It's also setting norms and expectations of students. this is what we expect, this is how you need to act, and then holding them to that. Uniqueness is, you're right, you can't punish them for cell phone use, but you can for insubordination when we say, don't have the cell phone out. So we're not punishing you for the cell phone, we're punishing you for insubordination. Take that word back, too. And then it's also communicating with parents. This is what's happening with your child. We're very sorry, we don't disagree with you about wanting to contact your child. Here's the procedure for doing it, and then moving forward. And so it's training of the whole community, and it'll take some time. It'll take a month or two.
So one of the things that keeps coming up, because we've gone through this a little bit as a board, is I would encourage an FAQ, because an FAQ will support frequently asked questions, will support the procedures behind the policy. What if, right? And it'll allow a living document for parents, teachers, and others to engage, to say, well, the policy states this, but what's the frequently asked questions? And I think we've gone down this road before with some other things, Doug. But I would encourage that begins sooner rather than later. The purpose is communication, right? Because if we can communicate to the community the requirements, then this in-between piece of work procedures, what does it actually look like in the school and how is it being distributed and managed, I think the FAQs will help shape additional work procedures or additional processes that will go behind it. I want to make sure as a community member that we get ahead of it, and just because we state it here at a board meeting and we say the policy's there, go read it, to be blunt, it's not enough information for the community. So I think it's important that we take the appropriate steps to develop, and what I want to do, my interest would be is an FAQ that's accessible online, that's continuously updated, where you can point to it and say, here, did you check this out, right? And if something's missing, we just continue to update it periodically. But overall, personally, I'm encouraged for the change to have a little less exposure to social media. I'll just say that directly as a parent. I think it's an okay thing, as long as we understand what the connectivity is with the students and then the connectivity from the administration back to the parents.
Right. Yeah, and I think that, high school, middle school, I was thinking should be a district-wide FAQ, but I think really from the principals, because then each building could be a little different.
Exactly.
Tailored to their clientele. And then in their Friday messages to the parents, they can say it's been updated, here's been a change, here's been a problem we're having, or here's where we're not seeing a problem and we've been able to reduce restrictions.
Correct.
But don't we want it to be a consistent, not by building, and we want it to be super consistent district-wide, so people aren't going from the middle school where certain rules apply to the high school where there's different rules? Like, this really should be
I would say 90% consistent, but there might be some nuances that you would want for younger children.
Is what's going to kick us in the rear end,
That's where I might turn to the buildings and how they manage their buildings, and I would want to see I don't see what would be different between the middle and high school sitting here, but having the conversation with the administrators, there might be something. For instance, a phys ed teacher might want them to bring their phone to class because of the steps and walking, whereas the other building has nobody that wants to do it, so the one building might have to have a procedure for how are you going to get your phone to the gymnasium. And that's where I would have to see it, because you have to take into account the instructional.
But then they're going to go to the high school and expect the same thing when the policy might be different. That's why I'm just kind of
Policy won't be different, it's how it's implemented.
Well, how it's implemented will be different. I just feel that it should be consistent and communication up front, and I think I'd sent a message.
There's definitely going to be exceptions. I mean, it could be health-wise that they need to have their phone on.
Well, that's across the board.
That's across the board. And I'm not saying that it wouldn't be consistent. I'm saying I am not going to lock into it being consistent until I've talked to the administrators and see what they have for feedback, because they're the ones who run their buildings, and they might come up with something, well, we want to do this, and we don't want to do it, and I might have to step in and say, no, you're both doing it.
But I think that, there's people that attend board meetings and are aware of what's going on, and I think you mentioned this in a Monday message, but I think a wider communication about what's transpiring September 1st needs to be had. And I know surrounding districts are sending out a wide message to say, this is what's going to
Yeah.
happen. Start the detox process with your high school students over the summer so they're not in shock.
Right.
But, an FAQ to accompany that, dissecting the policy, because the public's not going to read the policy.
No, I don't expect anyone,
Right.
to be honest, I don't expect
I didn't
anyone to
wanna
read the
read- oh, I'm just
policy.
Just kidding. But like,
I really don't expect anyone in the public to read it. I expect them to rely on the principles I put out, like in my Monday message, a big message to everyone, but now that should be followed up by the buildings of what they expect. Middle school already has in place of how they've been communicating. Elementary, believe it or not, have to do some work on this too, because parent, by different devices for children down there. But the degree in which they communicate for elementary to middle school to high school is going to vary just because of the age of the students.
I think the interest Heather has, and I don't disagree, is kind of looking at a standard operating procedure, right? I think that's important to land at the future, right? And I think that we should be focused on that. The other part of it, though, in reality, there's a transition period, and
Correct.
that's really where we are today. To be fair, we're implementing based on the law. This is the direction we're going, but there's a transition phase, which I don't believe we have enough information to build a standard operating procedure, because we don't know the various nuances, we don't know the exceptions, we don't know some of the pieces that will impact either schooling or teaching or instruction. So I think giving that opportunity, letting it all sort of surface with an FAQ, but I would expect a standard operating procedure pretty soon after, the September deadline of implementing it. What does that look like? And I say soon because it's wide, right? Is it 2 months? Is it 6 months? What's that transition period look like?
Yeah, I think there's also conversations with teachers too, because different teachers react differently to to the same expectation, just human nature, not one's better than the other, it's just how they interpret it.
Yep.
So there's a norming for that, across the board.
And I just wanted to kind of add to that, because of the way the policy is, and like different teachers may want the student to use the phone for, in their class, and then that would be allowed. That's why, and I think the FAQ, but when you originally said it's going to have to be an updated document, it's going to have to be, because to get a true standard policy procedure, we just can't right now. We have to experience it, and we're going to have to work through it.
but some sort of communication before
Oh, no,
September 1st.
Oh, no, we
needs to
agree,
go out.
but that's what,
Yeah.
that's what,
Otherwise, we're going to end up with a hot mess.
but the,
No, and that's going to be coming, I put out mine from the district. The rest of it will be coming from principals, because
Okay.
they're the ones who communicate the
And they know
procedures
that.
and practices.
And they know that.
Yeah, they should know that.
Should or
Some-
we should reiterate
Well,
that.
I do reinforce things.
Yeah.
I have to. I just had to reinforce something just the other day. So,
and what I,
but they definitely should know by now what's happening. But that's some of the work we do over the summer. How's it going to start? How's it going to look? What are your goals? How are you going to communicate this?
And the biggest thing that I want to stress is what Keith said, that document should be online, it's going to have to be living, because it's going to change. And I think part of the big communication from the building principals to the parents should be, please, pay attention, because this is going to change as it evolves. I think that's the biggest thing, because we don't want to put something out there, make it structured, okay, and check the box, and then be like, well, that doesn't work really well, but we're kind of stuck. That would not be what I would want to see happen.
Yeah, and the middle school has been communicating it for years, the expectations of no phone. But I know in different rooms with different teachers, maybe those expectations weren't 100% followed. So even though they've been doing it for a long time, I still think there might be more trouble in the middle school because of how it's been run. And they're like, oh, it's just the same thing. It's more stringent than what
It's the
was
high school
happening.
students, I think I'm more concerned about.
Yeah.
So, Lucia, do you think that,
I was
like,
just gonna ask.
your students, fellow students know that this is coming and are,
Well, I think in the middle school, like if it was study hall, like everyone had their phone out. And I think it is like depending on the teacher, but I feel like a lot of them were just like, it's study hall, it's fine. And then that also like carried into other classes where like high school, like kids have their phone out all the time. And
They have like AirPods in or something like that, right?
yeah, where like AirPods could be music, but it could just be TikTok that they have on their leg and like,
so do you think that they know that this is
oh,
coming?
I think it like has been talked about, but I think a lot of people are like, it's not gonna work. Like, like a lot of the kids, yeah.
They're gonna try getting away with it.
And that's going to be in the beginning, taking, I hate to say it, the low-hanging fruit and addressing those first, so people see, okay, it's going to be serious, you know, the very blatant abusers, and you just keep progressing through it. Other than that, we're going to have a big detention hall come Saturday, which you can't punish for the phone, it's insubordination, I get it.
Oh, and Doug and I, we should really look at that policy. No, but, and what, you know, Doug and I have talked about this a lot. One of the jobs of students and teenagers, one of their things is to test boundaries. It's one of the things that they do. And then it's, you know, how we react to it, and then hopefully between the, you know, all of us and the students, we come to a place, you know, of agreement and consensus. So it's what I'm saying, it's something that we're gonna have to expect, and we're gonna have to work through it.
Is there a date in mind where, let's say you open up the front page of the school website and it's, you know, something says, we're transitioning to a no cell phone policy and blah, blah, blah. Is there something like that in the works?
Not on the website. I
even
put out
just-
my Monday message, we will be at beginning of
Okay.
next school year.
Not even just,
So
I'm
every single
more
parent-
concerned about the parents and the students. I think the
Yeah.
students can,
So I did that, but then there'll be, and that's where the follow-up from the messages.
yeah.
There's some
Yeah.
kids that are just attached, you couldn't have it out of their hand if they were laying on the ground and down to it. I mean,
Yeah.
they're glued to their phone.
It'll be interesting to see.
It will be.
Soccer tournament, and the coach says, hey, grab all the phones, because adults are at one, kids are at the other. 5 minutes, you swear to God, they detox after the first 5 minutes. They were like old school kids. So I think it'll be a good thing, again, but, you know, it's what it is.
We'll see.
And the last
Yeah, it'll be a transition.
Okay, moving on to, any other comments? Moving on to 8, is there any request to withdraw any item from the agenda? Is there a request to add any item to the agenda? Okay, then I am making a motion to approve the agenda items 10.01 to 20.13. Can I have a second? Second by Todd. All in favor? Okay, 7 in favor, none opposed. The agenda and the motion carries. Okay, 22, recognition of guests for a non-agenda topic. Is there any guests?
No.
Okay, I do not believe we need an executive session. Okay, I am going to make the motion to adjourn at 9:24. Can I have a second?
Can I just add something? So the next time we're meeting is July 22nd, right, at 8 AM? Just before we, because I just wanted, I noticed that on the calendar, just wanted to make sure that.
What I have from our last meeting is that July 22nd, we'll have a light breakfast, 7:30 to 9:30. We're looking at training for about 30 minutes, board goals for 5, board evaluation 30 minutes, topics, 4 presentations throughout the year would be about 15 minutes. Litigation from John would be 2 minutes, and then personal appointments, if any, for 2 minutes.
So 7:30 to 9:30.
That's what I have written down from our meeting
Okay.
from last time of what we
And
said.
at that
Okay.
meeting, last time I did let everyone know I would not be at that meeting because I'm going to be in the Outer Banks.
Okay.
So, I mean, I could probably maybe get it on the computer, but I will be in the Outer Banks.
Yep.
All right, thanks, sorry to
Little umbrella drinks.
deviate.
No, that was good. I actually meant to say that, and I completely forgot
All right.
about doing it, so thank you.
Thank you,
I was
Heather.
like, oh yeah, good job.
Yeah, okay, cool.
I will make the motion to adjourn. Can I have a second? Second by Todd and Heather. All in favor? Okay, that's 7 in favor, none opposed. We are adjourned at 9:25. Doug, hit the gavel.
Thanks.